Certainly. Hunting techniques throughout history and across different cultures can be far more bizarre and inventive than one might first assume. Many of these methods, some seemingly strange to modern sensibilities, were born out of necessity and the deep knowledge of the environment. These methods are rooted in traditions passed down through generations, often developed in isolation, and tailored to the specific needs of the hunter. In this exploration, we'll go even deeper into more bizarre and creative hunting techniques from around the world, many of which are so unique that they defy typical understanding. At 1. The Whip and Net Kangaroo Hunt, Australia. In the wild, vast outback of Australia, traditional Aboriginal hunting methods include using whips and nets in unison to capture prey like kangaroos, emus, and even wild dogs. This method is a perfect combination of stealth, speed, and precision, and while it may seem odd to modern hunters who rely on rifles, it's a testament to the hunting culture's deep connection to their environment. The whip is not just a tool for striking, but rather a tool of communication. Aboriginal hunters have mastered the art of using the whip to confuse, disorient, and corral prey into specific areas. By cracking a whip near a kangaroo, for example, the sound can confuse and momentarily immobilize the animal, giving the hunter enough time to move in closer. Hunters would use the whip in combination with nets that they would either throw or stretch out in front of the kangaroo's escape path. The kangaroo, startled and disoriented by the crack of the whip, would often become trapped in the nets. This technique requires incredible timing, coordination, and a profound knowledge of animal behavior. The idea of using a whip as a precision tool for hunting might seem strange, but to the Aboriginal people, it's a tried and tested method for sustainable hunting, designed to minimize injury to the animal and to ensure no waste. Akar 2. Akar fire hunting, Indigenous Africa and Australia. Among some of the most bizarre methods, fire hunting may seem like something straight out of a myth or fantasy story, but it's a real technique used by various indigenous cultures, especially in Africa and/or Australia. This technique takes advantage of eye-controlled burns to create chaos in the natural world, guiding animals into a trap. In Africa, fire hunting is often employed for capturing antelope or large game such as buffalo. Indigenous tribes would intentionally set fires on the periphery of the game's natural path or hunting grounds. The flames would startle the animals, forcing them to run away from the heat. As they fled, they would often head toward areas where hunters were lying in wait, effectively trapping the game between the flames and the hunters. The fires might also be used to drive animals into natural or man-made funnel traps, where hunters would either ambush them with spears or arrows or use nets to capture them. Similarly, in Australia, Aboriginal groups used fire stick hunting techniques, particularly for kangaroos. In these practices, large fires were set in a controlled manner to drive herds of kangaroos into natural geese enclosures, or traps. While the technique was risky and required precise knowledge of the land and wind patterns, it was incredibly effective when done right. The smoke and heat would cause the animals to become disoriented, and they would often run in a specific direction, directly into the waiting hands of the hunters. Chapter 3. Bird luring with fake birds, Indonesia. In Indonesia, particularly in Bali, the unique practice of bird luring involves using fake birds, or decoys, to attract real birds, typically for capturing or hunting, known as mat perkutut hunting. It revolves around the use of extremely lifelike wooden or straw decoys designed to mimic the sounds and movements of native bird species, especially doves or pigeons. The decoys are often mounted on sticks or placed in trees, and the hunters use specific bird calls to attract real birds to land nearby. The real birds, drawn in by the sounds and presence of their fellow birds, are then captured in nets or with specially designed traps. One particularly bizarre aspect of this method is the use of mock bird songs. The hunter mimics the exact tonal frequencies of the species they wish to lure. The use of both visual and auditory decoys adds an element of deception that goes far beyond typical hunting practices. For these hunters, the skill in creating the most convincing fake bird calls could make the difference between a successful hunt and going home empty-handed. Act 4. The hooding technique for bears, Arctic. For those hunting, polar bears or grizzly bears, the idea of simply walking up and shooting them with a rifle seems like the obvious method. However, the Inuit people developed a truly bizarre hunting technique known as hooding, or chapon blindfolding, to capture bears in the wild. When polar bears would enter their dens or temporary shelters, the Inuit would attempt to approach them by first masking their scent. One of the most unique elements of this technique involved the use of seal skins or other animal pelts. These pelts were fashioned into makeshift hoods or coverings for the hunter, essentially allowing them to sneak up on the animal without being detected. Once in the vicinity of the den, hunters would slowly cover their heads with the seal skins, using the natural smell to mask their presence. They would then wait patiently, sometimes for days, for the bear to emerge. Once the bear did, the hunter would spring into action, using a spear or shotgun to bring it down. This technique was developed out of necessity in the frigid, isolated conditions of the Arctic, and served as an example of how a profound understanding of nature and animal behavior could create highly effective, albeit bizarre, hunting methods. The giant net fishing and hunting, China. One of the most bizarre and awe-inspiring hunting techniques comes from ancient China, where fishermen and hunters would use huge nets, sometimes more than 100 meters in length, to capture massive schools of fish or even wild boar. The Chinese fishing nets, known as Chinavala, are one of the most fascinating methods of hunting that have evolved over thousands of years. Large nets were anchored to poles and strategically placed in river mouths, lakes, or coastal areas, and then large groups of people would work together to catch fish. These nets were often so massive that entire villages could participate in pulling them in. In some regions, this method was adapted to land-based hunting, particularly for wild boars. Large, key mesh nets were used to funnel animals toward a central trap or area where hunters, armed with spears and other weapons, could kill the animals. The sheer size of the nets and the number of people required to operate them make this technique one of the most coordinated, bizarrely large-scale hunting methods. And 6. The trained crocodile hunt, Papua New Guinea. Among the most shocking of all hunting techniques is the practice in parts of Papua New Guinea, where hunters use trained crocodiles to help catch other animals. This hunting method involves domesticating large saltwater crocodiles and utilizing their natural hunting instincts. The practice, known as crocodile hunting, involves training the crocs to respond to commands or even signals. Once the crocodile has been trained, it is directed to attack specific prey, such as wild pigs or deer. The hunter works in tandem with the crocodile, using signals like drum beats or other sounds to guide the animal toward its target. This method is not only bizarre because of the collaboration between man and beast, but also because of the extreme risk involved. Crocodiles are among the most dangerous predators on the planet, and handling them for hunting purposes requires extraordinary skill and bravery. Bat hunting with fireflies, Tanzania. In certain parts of Tanzania, the indigenous tribes use a highly unusual technique to hunt: fruit bats. These bats are notoriously difficult to catch due to their high speed and ability to maneuver in darkness. However, local hunters have developed a method of using fireflies to lure the bats into nets. In this bizarre hunting method, the hunter would capture a number of fireflies and tie them to branches or plant materials in the trees. As night falls, the bats are naturally drawn to the glowing light of the fireflies. Once the bats are close enough, hunters use large nets to capture them. The incredible part of this technique is the knowledge required to artificially attract the bats using the bioluminescence of fireflies, an entirely different approach from any modern hunting practices. This fascinating example of ecological awareness has been passed down through generations. 8. The giant blowpipe hunt, Amazon rainforest. In the Amazon rainforest, blowpipes are used by indigenous tribes as a method for hunting small game, but one of the most bizarre techniques involves hunting with giant blowpipes. These blowpipes can be as long as 18 feet and are used to fire darts tipped with poison. The poison is usually derived from plants, making the blowpipe incredibly effective in capturing large animals despite its small size. The hunter's ability to conceal themselves and use this weapon to take down animals with great precision is what makes this technique truly bizarre. The blowpipe method is so accurate that animals such as monkeys, sloths, and even wild pigs can be taken down quietly and efficiently. The effectiveness of the poison and the stealthy nature of the blowpipe make